Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Cake and today we're going to be taking a look at a game called Diabolic. Before we do though, as always I ask you to drop a like if you enjoyed the review and consider subscribing to the channel to be notified of future reviews. Let's get started. So, Diabolic sells itself as a slasher RPG, a genre which, as far as I know, doesn't actually exist and was just made up to make the game sound cool. It's essentially a hack and slash game, which is what I think they were going for, similar to Gauntlet. The game starts at a very simple menu with an odd choice of music. Proceeding to the play menu, we're given a list of levels where only one is unlocked at the moment, and we can also take a look at the talents menu. Here we find that the talents are grouped into 4 categories: hero, sword, magic and ranged attack, with each category having 3 skills that we're able to improve through spending gold earned in game. Heading back to the main menu, we jump into the game's first level, City. We begin in some sort of village with no hint of a storyline, and as we exit, a woman clad in green, with what appears to be giant pixel boobs, informs us that the undead are attacking and that we need to report it to the king. I'm not sure why she can't do it herself, but we're given the main quest of finding a portal which will take us to a field not far from the kingdom. As we proceed onward, skeletons rise from the ground and begin attacking us. Here I learn the game doesn't have twin stick controls and instead I need to face the enemy using the left thumbstick before I can attack it, either at short range with my sword or at a distance with either magic, which uses mana, or spears which use ammo, of which you can carry very little. After taking a few hits, I smash open a few crates which can contain red orbs to heal you, or blue orbs to restore mana, which regenerates pretty rapidly on its own, so they're practically useless. You can also break spear racks which top up your ranged ammunition. Continuing onwards, a large skeleton rises up from the ground as we near this chap at the mill, but we quickly dispatch it with a few sword strikes and a couple of fireballs. The guy at the mill gives us an optional quest to kill some wolves attacking his sheep, which are nowhere in sight, so presumably they've either all been eaten, or you're going to have to use your imagination on this one. So we head to the east and fireball the wolves to death. And it's at this point I begin to notice a curious thing with the enemy AI. Unlike our character who can move in any direction, enemies only appear to be able to move in either a vertical or horizontal line. This allows me to waltz right past them and line them up for a good fireballing. Upon reaching the end of this area, we complete the side quest and are awarded 100 gold. From here we head back past the mill and continue onward, killing a few more groups of skeletons before finding and entering the portal to complete the level. The next level begins in a field and I decided to test out just how shitty the AI was by pulling every enemy in the entire area. As I'm doing this, I also spy a couple of keys whose colour correspond to the locked area at the top of the field. After pulling every enemy, I dash back down to the bottom of the area and just stand there swinging my sword as a wave of enemies wander aimlessly into it and perish. I then grab the 2 keys which unlocks the blue and red locks and I continue forward where a couple of obelisks rise from the ground. Much like in Gauntlet, enemies continuously spawn from these every few seconds until they're destroyed. As I'm dispatching these, an optional quest appears directing me to find the treasure in the Labyrinth, which turns out to in fact be the grass that just rose up on the left, which is undoubtedly the shittiest attempt at a labyrinth in gaming history. At the end of the labyrinth are a bunch of chests as a reward which basically contain fuck all. I then continue onward and dash past a few enemies that I couldn't be bothered to fight to the portal and the level ends. I decided to take a moment to spend some of my hard earned cash and bump up my sword damage a little before heading into the next level, the cave. Here is where I get my first taster of the red crystals, something you're going to have to get very fucking familiar with as they constantly appear to bar you away from this point onward. To remove these barriers you have to destroy the eyeball, and the fastest way to do this is with your spells, so I fling a few fireballs at the damn thing and the crystals shatter. As I move forwards though, another fucking set of crystals rise from the floor, so yet again I have to blast the eyeball to remove them. Further up into the cave, a few big red bastards and a bunch of blue mushrooms which fire projectiles at me spawn. I skillfully retreat to use the wall for cover and destroy the skeletons before flinging a few fireballs at the mushrooms to destroy them, but as I attempt to leave, another fucking barrier spawns and I've got to destroy yet another eyeball. As I move ahead, a bunch of mushrooms and enemies away, and I think fuck this and try and get past them, but I'm stopped by some coloured locks. With nowhere to run, I'm slain, and the most confusing message ever appears telling me how much gold I just lost. After death, half of the gold found is preserved at the level. 94 plus 249 divided by 2 equals plus 218. Well, I can't work out what the fuck this means, so I just restart the level, grab the keys that I need to get past the barriers, and head on through to the end portal to leave the level. The next level is a boss fight against some sort of worm sporting a white goatee. I first tried to face tank him and end up dying, so I decided to switch tactics and lob some fireballs his way from off screen whilst killing a few skeletons that spawn. This tactic works out much better and I kill him with little issue. He drops a shit ton of silver, which gives me an idea. After leaving the level, I head back to the stat screen, resetting my talents and pumping all my remaining gold into fireball damage. I then head back into the boss fight and kill him in about 10 seconds. That was easy I thought, and decided to kill him about 50 more times until I had enough gold to max my magic stats before proceeding onward. So it appears at this point that our original quest to seek the king's help and any sort of storyline has been completely abandoned as we make our way through the next few levels. Gameplay doesn't change, we face countless fucking barriers at every turn, and apart from encountering a couple of new enemies like these red mushrooms and these big crown skeletons, there's actually nothing much else of interest to report. We gain a couple of new spells, firstly this flame blast which can damage multiple enemies at once, and secondly this ice blast which slows enemies but it instantly uses all of our mana so it's pretty fucking worthless. Eventually we come across what appears to be the king, who has nothing interesting to say and he just tells us about some ice caves to the east wherein lies an ancient artifact, the soul of a dragon. We make our way through the next area, dispatching a few reskinned skeletons, including these big ones with red crowns, and fight another bearded worm at the end. The 8th level of the game is the Labyrinth, and this is where the true fucking shit show starts, as the game's real shovelware potential starts to shine. It's also where the game's frame rate takes a further dive as it struggles to handle all this beautiful pixel art. You basically have to navigate through this maze of trees, grabbing keys and destroying barriers as you go, which isn't particularly difficult, but your character gets stuck at every fucking corner due to the shitty collision detection, and the god awful combat controls resulted in me dying several times. I eventually managed to get through the maze, had to destroy yet another barrier that appears just before the portal, and managed to escape with a sliver of health. The second to last level, Ice Cave, just has a bunch of ice enemies in it and barriers blocking your way. By this point I just wanted to finish the fucking game, so I decided to dash through them, destroying barriers as I went, before destroying them all at once at the end. I then had to face off against 4 bearded worms at once and a few skeletons, this time with orange crowns, and I had to kill them all and destroy another barrier before slipping into the end portal, ready to face the final boss of the game, the dragon. Entering into this final zone, I hardly need to state that my hopes and expectations weren't high, but I still wasn't really prepared for the worst end boss I've ever faced in a game. Just fucking look at it. The art style of the dragon doesn't match the rest of the game's pixel aesthetic, its chest is clipping through the fucking wall, and it basically just sits there doing nothing. Every so often it'll spit out a stream of projectiles from its forehead, and a bunch of them will come from the bottom of the screen. But the hardest thing about this fight is the constant waves of enemies respawning. All you do is pepper it with fireballs until it vanishes without a whiff of celebration. It drops a bunch of coins, which at this point you're hardly going to need to fucking spend, and you make your way to the exit portal to be greeted by the endgame credits. No prologue, no nothing, just 6 lines of text, one of which caught my eye. I should have known Dragius Games were involved in this debacle. These fuckers are quickly becoming the new LGN of the Nintendo Switch era. So without further ado, let's get onto my rating of the game, shall we? Well, you may have noticed some similarities between this game and Skull Rogue, another game published by Dragius Games. The reskinned and repetitive enemies, the simplistic combat mechanics, and the near pointless stat leveling system are also present. And so just like that festering pile of shite, I honour Diabolic with a shovelware stamp of approval. Now I'll take a brief moment to tell the eStore's description of the game a new arsehole. Let's begin with the dynamic and intuitive combat system. Well, this is a partially true statement, since it's about as intuitive as you can get with only 5 fucking buttons to press for your sword, ranged and magic skills. As for dynamic, you can swing your sword and then shoot a fireball, I suppose. Does that count? Next the description reads, there are various enemies, each requiring a different approach. Well, this is a fucking lie, since their AI is horrendous. They all just basically walk at you and can only travel in a straight line. You can choose to become an unstoppable tank, a deadly archer, or a powerful mage. Well, if you just hold your attack button, enemies just walk into it, so I suppose you are unstoppable, but this statement makes it sound more exciting than it actually is. Next on to Diabolic's features. Pixel art slasher RPG, perfect to take a fun break. No, the game's just not fun, stop lying. A good difficulty curve to get you quickly started, but challenge you towards the end. Well, it's certainly a challenge fighting through that fucking labyrinth. Different types of enemies that make the combat varied and interesting. No, just no. What you really mean is a bunch of reskinned enemies, none of which hold any interest whatsoever. Simple and decisive upgrade system, letting you play with totally different styles, where you can decide to either stand on the spot and chop things, or stand on the spot and burn things, it's all up to you. A hellish dark fantasy world with atmospheric music. Fucking get real. The game has about 3 tracks, none of which seem to fit its genre or style, and 2 of which seem like they were pulled from a various artist piano collection CD. So in summary, this game really shouldn't have been called Diabolic. It should have been called Diabolical because that's what the game is, a fucking diabolical mess. I advise you not to buy it, you will regret it, but if for some reason you still want to, you can pick it up, currently reduced to £2.24p on the UK store and $2.99 on the US store. And that's all for this review of Diabolic. If you enjoyed the review and I perhaps saved you a few pennies, please show your appreciation with a like. Also, consider subscribing to support the channel and be notified of future indie game reviews. For now though, I thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, game on.